Welcome again. Today we'll be taking the part 2 of create an e-commerce product cart with ASP.NET Core 3.1 and buy product, add to cart and continue shopping or checkout. That is the program today. So in this part we shall be doing this on clicking the buy link that we have created in the last lecture, part 1. So since this lecture is entirely built on the first part, please make sure that you see the first lecture, understand it thoroughly before coming to this part, because this part is entirely built upon the first part. Okay, so a shopping cart is created on clicking the buy link with the details of the product and the price, and by clicking the continue shopping, more products can be added to the cart, which shows the total price amount, which is sum of all the individual product prices. On clicking the remove link for a product, the product is removed from the cart and the total price is adjusted accordingly. And on clicking the go to checkout, the checkout view shows the total amount. Or you can continue shopping, which will take you to the product page, and you can pick up further product and then go to buy now again to come to the shopping cart page. Now let's see the finished product in action. Let's show you the final product that will be the outcome of today's lecture. Now this is what we will ultimately build by the end of today. So this is the product list. Last time you have seen the product list was tucked away on the left, but now I have indented it by introducing the layout. The layout file, which is in the shared folder. And if you click on buy now, and if you continue shopping, you should be able to actually pick up more products than one. And if you go to checkout, then it will take you to the checkout page. Okay, and if you go back and if you wish to remove one of the product, the sum will be adjusted and that product will be removed. And if you click on go to checkout, it will come to the checkout page with the adjusted total amount to pay. So let's flip over to the Visual Studio now. Now the first thing I need to do here is to create a cart controller. So right click on the controller folder and click on controller, MVC controller empty, again empty controller. And because we are not using entity framework at all, so there is no question of this one, and this we are going to write with our, we have to hand code the empty controller. Okay, so click on add again. So this time it will be a cart controller. So cart controller.cs. So cart controller is created for me. Now this is the index action method. By default returns view of type action result. And now before I would start coding, I have to start coding for this index action method. I need a couple of helper methods, which we'll have to create now. So I'll have to create a helpers folder in which I will create the required methods, okay, extension methods rather. So right click on project level, project tab, add new folder. So name it helpers. That means it will contain the helper methods. Okay. Add a class over here, add class, and this class will be session helper, known as session helper. So it will help with the maintaining of the session state. Okay, so I have already talked about sessions and cookies, how to do the state management in ASP.NET Core. So please go through the lecture on my playlist on ASP.NET Core 3.1, which will give you some idea about the state management with session if you don't have any idea. Okay, so what we are going to write here is in this session helper, this I need to make it a static class for making it a contain a couple of extension method because they have to be static. So public static class session helper. Okay. Now, one of the methods I will call on the session object is setString method, and another is for getting the setString. So session.setString and session.getString. But I will wrap those methods around two extension methods. So public static, and I will explain after writing these extension methods. Public void set so it will return void or null set object as JSON, and this will have an argument of I session object session a key, string key, and object value for that string. Okay, so string key, object value. Now, so after installing Newtonsoft.json package through package manager, NuGet package manager, I could successfully put it in the JSON convert.serialize object of value. So what this does is that it provides the methods for converting between .NET types and JSON types. So it will serialize the object with the parameter value passed to this method. Okay, extension method. So it will set the string in the session object with this particular key, and it will serialize the object. Okay, and then the next part of the static class session helper is public static. Now this will return a T. This will be a generic type object. It will return. So get object from JSON. It accepts a T type, generic type parameter, same as it is getting returned. And also this will use the same iSession, this iSession session, and because it is getting an object, the value will be automatically retrieved with the key and the session object. Now this is two lines actually. So in the first line, a var value is assigned session dot get string. So session dot get string. So it will retrieve a string from the session with the given key. All right, and then return value null. If it is null, it will return a default value, and if it is non-null, it will JSON convert dot deserialize. It will deserialize the object which was serialized. Okay, so again JSON convert dot deserialize object this time, and that deserialized object will be of type T, and it will take a value, string value. Okay, this will not be semicolon, this will be question mark. All right, and equals. So return value equals null. If it is null, then it becomes it takes a it returns a default value. Otherwise, it will deserialize the object of type T and return it. Okay. So these two methods will be proving helpful, as we'll see soon. So back here to the cart controller, and above the return view, I have to write a few lines to complete this index action method. So one variable I'll assign initialize var cart equals. Now I will make use of this session helper, which I have just written. Session helper, and now for that I'll have to use the light bulb icon to use a using statement. So it will automatically do it for me using e-commerce shopping cart ASP netcode.helpers. So session helper is now included. Session helper dot, if it is a static class, you can straight away use it without instantiating it. Dot get object from JSON, and this will be a list of item. List item. And this will expect a parameter of HTTP context dot session, the session object in the context, and within double quotes cart. Okay, cart is the key, right? And this is the item model. Okay, so item, and this will have to, you have to bring in another namespace using payment integration with PayPal dot models. This is wrong actually. Since I have copied it from another project, so the namespace is coming from there, but I have now cleared it. E-commerce, this project, current project, so e-commerce shopping cart ASP.NET Core .models. Now everything is fine, and now the next line is I'll be using a viewBag object. So viewBag dot cart is equal to cart, this cart object that has been assigned, and then viewBag dot total. It is dynamic, so it will not come on the IntelliSense. VBag dot total equals cart dot sum this lambda operator item goes to item dot product dot price multiplied by item dot quantity. It is the total price in the cart. Okay, so here the item is the parameter item. Okay, so this is actually the item class. Okay, right. Now the reason is this is of type item, which is the model class, is because it is now coming from here. It is setting over here in the first line, view var cart equals session helper dot get object from JSON with a list of item. Okay, so this is item type, and what this get object from JSON was doing, this was, if you look into the right click and go to definition again in this session helper class, it was retrieving, it was JSON converting, it was operating the JSON convert on to deserialize the object. So it was deserializing the object of type item. Okay. Now next I am going to write an isExist method and passing a string ID, and it will return integer if the ID, if a product with that ID exists. Okay, so let's get there. Private list item cart. Again, use this session helper class dot get object from JSON. List of type item. HTTP context dot session and a string key, session object and key. The key will be in cart. Okay. Now there will be a for loop here. I'll shortly explain to you what I am going to do. So for int I equals 0, I less than cart dot count, the number of objects in the cart. So cart dot count, and if the ith element of the cart I dot product dot id dot equals with the passed in id as a parameter. Okay, if the product id is found in the passed string id, then return I. Return the counter, and outside of this for loop return -1 once outside of this loop, to fulfill the need to pass an integer from the method. Okay, so after having written this, I have already written this method isExist and the index action method, and now I have to create a couple of more action methods to complete this cart controller. So public, it will also return an iAction result type, and name it by. Okay, pass it a string ID. New product model. session if this is null, this expression, then list of item Alright, I will be explaining in a bit. All right, so is the meaning clear? So if the session helper dot get object from JSON, that means when you don't get anything from the session object, then you initialize a new cart item of type list type item, and then add to that list a new item with a product model dot find the passed in ID to this by action method. You find the product and quantity, make it 1. Okay. Else, now come to the else branch. So we are not yet done. Below this will be session helper dot you have to first set the object to the session and then come to the else branch. Okay. That means if it is not null, then list of item the entire thing so just paste this if this is not null. Okay, then you come to this else branch and write the same code. Okay, and then int index equals call this is exist function to check if it exists, a product with that ID exists, and get the index. Okay, and then look for if not equal to -1, cart at that index dot quantity, just increment by 1 if the index is not -1, else lot of if else's. Right, cart dot add. Now add a new item, in that case new item, you can add this one. Just copy from here, new product, copy and paste over here. Okay, again it is a repetition of the same code. I think it is, you can follow. Oh, it's straight enough, actually it's simple enough if you just concentrate. Doesn't need extra explanation. I'm guessing session helper dot set object as this JSON, and then just copy from here, just copy and paste it over here. Again you are setting in the else branch the session object. Okay, so else branch, here it is complete. Now below this, come out of the if else branch and then return redirect to action index. So return to the index page. Redirect to action. Index. So this redirect to action to index, it actually redirects to the index action method of the same controller, the cart controller. So when you click buy from the product page, it, after selecting, it comes to the index page to from the index page it goes to the shopping cart. Okay, now finally I have to write another action method to complete this cart controller, and that is the remove action method. So if you click on remove, it will actually remove that item from the shopping cart. So this will be also public action result. Remove with an ID. So first line will be the very common to this part. So copy from here, paste. Now there will be a for loop here. For int I equals 0, I less than cart.count. For the entire number of objects in the cart, I plus plus. Now let's get rid of this for loop. The for loop will not be here. It will be, first line is fine, and then I'll be declaring an integer index, and I will get this index from calling the isExist function and passing this ID, which I have received from the parameter of this method. And then cart because that is of a list item. So I can call the remove at method for a list. It removes at a particular index, remove at that ID. Or here it is actually index. It gets the index of that past ID. Okay. And then session helper dot set object as JSON. The same part is repeated. So I'll copy this. Control V. And finally, after removing the object at that index, it will set the object as JSON. It will set into the session object and then finally return back to the index action method. Return redirect to action back to the index method of this cart controller, like we did from the buy action method. Okay, great. Now I have to create a view for this index action method for this cart controller. So right click index, add view. Blazor view, add. Index empty without model. Use a layout page. Yes, I will use a layout page and click on add. So I have got this view for this cart index view. Now I'll get rid of the top lines, a few markup, and then put the layout like before. Layout equals within double quotes underscore layout for the from the shared layout.cshtml file. Okay, to apply a consistent layout. Now I have got quite a bit of marking code to make, so just hopefully you'll be patient till I complete typing. Meta name viewport, content width, device width, again for responsive design. Okay. Head and head. Now body, within the body H3 header, and this will be cart page. Cell padding 2. Cell spacing 2, and then border 1. Right. And between the table and end table will be all the action. Now these are the table headers: option, ID, name, photo, price, quantity, and subtotal. That has to be shown as a header. Okay, so after this tr, I'll put a for each loop. For each tab. So var item in collection. Now this collection will be coming from the view bag dot cart. The cart we have added to the view bag dynamic collection. So now tr and tr, within tr and ntr will be the all the table cells containing the values for those header td, ntd, and within this will be an anchor, ASP controller, cart. This is the cart controller, ASP action, remove action. It will call the remove action, trigger the remove action, and ASP root ID. A key. So that marks the end of the table with all the columns value populated in the for each loop. And then after that there is a break, a line break. And then two links, action links, anchor ASP controller. This will be directing to product controller with an ASP index, ASP action that will map to the index action method in the product controller. It will be named as continue shopping. So if you click this link, continue shopping, it will take to the index action method of the product controller. And then finally, controller. Now there will be a checkout controller. That will be my final task. The last task is the checkout controller with a checkout view. That will mark the end of this project. And don't worry, that will be far less complex as compared to the cart controller or product controller even. ASP. So please watch it. Now that you have watched it so patiently, please continue to watch it for a few more minutes before we come to the end of this discussion. Go to checkout. And end body and HTML. And build. Can do a quick build to see everything is alright or not with Ctrl+Shift+B. So build succeeded. Now final task in this list today is to create another controller, that is a checkout controller. So add controller, MVC controller empty, click on add. So controller class empty, give it a name, checkout controller. Okay. So checkout controller, this shell is created for me, and I have to add a few using statements. So using this e-commerce, this project name dot helpers, and then another using statement that uses e-commerce shopping cart ASP not core dot models folder, and the helpers folder needs to be used here. So I action result index. So to complete this, just follow me. So var cart again is the same repetition, session helper dot get object from JSON. It will operate on list of item. Item class, and it will pass, it will accept an HTTP context object dot session and the key value of cart again, just to make it unambiguous to know what is this key referring to. Okay, and then view back dot cart equals cart total it is basically the same code that I have written for the cart controller index action method. Okay, because they are doing the same thing. It is bringing the sum of all the items subtotals to make it a total sum and adding it to the view bag in the total field. Then item goes to dot product dot price product price into quantity item dot quantity. We'll give the total price, okay, and return view. I think that's pretty much it. So let's see if we can run this application. No, I have to now do the checkout controller as a last step. So I've got this checkout view for this index action method. Okay, so for this checkout controller I still don't have it. So right click, add view, reserve view, add index empty without model, use a layout page, yes, add. Now I will modify, I'll get rid of this unnecessary code. Okay, and then like I will use the layout page. So layout underscore layout, the default, the shared layout. Okay, and then doc type. Exclamation doc type HTML. Now this signifies that we are using HTML5 and HTML head, end head, and below head there is a body. And end body. So again the head will be the repetition of the same thing. So meta name equals viewport content width equals device width. Okay, and then in the body it will be simple checkout page h3 header, checkout page, the title, and then a table, cell padding and cell spacing both are 2, cell padding 2, cell spacing 2, border 1, and table. So tr and tr and a header, total amount to pay, just like a standard checkout page, total amount to pay. You can just write total amount. It's total amount to pay, and then another tr and a td, table cell, which will finally hold the view bag total, view bag dot total. and end of all the markup and coding. And let's try to build this application. Ctrl+Shift+B. It succeeded. Now let's run this application by clicking this IIS Express button. One last thing, it should have been actually first, because now I am using session objects as a state management. So I'll have to do the configuration in the startup. So in the startup, within the configure services, I'll have to add something more. So services.add controller with views, that's fine. But before that, I have to add a couple of lines more. So that is services dot add distributed memory cache. Okay. And then another thing is services dot add session with options goes to lambda operator again. Options dot idle timeout equals time span dot from seconds, say 20 seconds. If it is idle, it will time out, and then semicolon, terminate the statement, and then options, put a semicolon at the end here, and options dot cookie dot HTTP only true, cookie has to be true, and essential is true. Options dot cookie dot essential is essential method, it is boolean, is true, so it is essential. It has to be configured, otherwise this session will not work, and rest is okay. And let's see. So after routing, I have to use app.useSession. Use session middleware has to be there, otherwise session will not work. Use session. Okay, above the authorization. I don't need authorization, but I need use endpoints, of course, as I have told you in my earlier lectures on endpoints and middleware. So it's all ready. Now let's run this application. Now one small thing just I found out here was left in the cart index view. So here ASP root ID was, it has to be item dot product dot ID, and within this link is remove. This is the remove link basically. Okay, so with these changes I will just run this application. Click on the IIS experience to run this application. Now my application is loaded, then I can buy now. Buy now will bring me to the cart page, and I can remove this item, and I can continue shopping. I can click on another buy now and then continue shopping, add another product. The sum total is added 10.25. I can remove one of the product, and then I can go to the checkout 6.8. Okay, that is the amount to be paid. So it all works, and I can again come back here and continue shopping. Click on a few more items, and item ID, everything is showing, name, photo, price, quantity, and go to checkout. So it all works. So this is the end of this e-commerce two-part application. Now this application is actually ready for payment integration with any gateway like this your PayPal or any other renowned gateway that is easy, that could be pretty simple to do, but that is out of the scope of this lecture. So see you again.